Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, I'm Tom Duesterberg, the director of the manufacturing program here at the Aspen Institute. And on behalf of the Aspen Institute, I'd like to welcome everyone here today, especially the many guests and participants who have traveled from Germany and many places throughout the United States to be with us today. This is the fourth event that the manufacturing program has organized on the subject of skills shortages for the resurgent manufacturing sector. Senior executives from both the U.S. and foreign firms operating in the United States consistently report that the right workforce is one of the most important challenges they face when contemplating new or expanded production. 2 years ago, we explored in a general way the German model of dual education in an event here at the Institute, again with co-sponsorship from the German Embassy and the participation of many senior educators and businesses from Germany and the United States. Today's session will look more closely at the exciting and increasingly effective ways companies and regional consortia in the United States are working together with educators to implement innovative skills training programs and how they might be expanded. And we are pleased to announce a little bit of news today that is that one of our speakers today is from Festo Didactic, a exciting German company that's introducing training into the United States on the German model. But Festo and Central Piedmont Community College are pleased to announce that today Washington Festo and our academic partner CPCC, Piedmont Community College, have signed a formal letter of intent to establish a new transatlantic joint venture in Charlotte to be known as the Festo CPCC Training Academy and Learning Center of Excellence. So let's give, we're pleased that the German-American cooperation is taking more and more concrete forms, and we're going to explore some of those in depth today. Let me, before turning it over to our featured speakers, let me thank the co-sponsors of this event, the German Embassy, the German Center for Research and Innovation, the representative of German Industry and Trade, and the German-American Chambers of Commerce. I want to thank all of them for their excellent input and organizational assistance in assembling the fine program we have for you today. I also want to thank the sponsors of the Aspen's manufacturing program, whose financial and moral support has made this event possible. These include the Apollo Group, Bison Gear and Engineering, Rockwell Automation, Snap-on Tools, the Dover Corporation, Parker Hannifin, Kennametal, the National Association of Manufacturers, the Manufacturers Alliance for Productivity and Innovation, Madison Industries, and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Finally, I'd like to thank Secretary Pritzker for taking the time to be with us today and for her leadership on the issue of skills training. She has taken the mantle on this issue for many years, including in the private sector, where she was instrumental, amongst other things, in founding the Skills for America's Future program. The Aspen Institute has been honored to be a collaborator in this program, and we look forward to working with Secretary Pritzker in the future. It is now my honor to introduce Dr. Peter Wittig, the Ambassador of the Federal Republic of Germany to the United States. After a distinguished career in academia, Dr. Wittig has over 30 years of increasingly important responsibilities in the Foreign Service of Germany. Posts have included being ambassador to Cyprus, Lebanon, and to the United Nations, and as a senior civil servant in the Foreign Office in Berlin. Dr. Wittig only recently assumed his post in Washington, and we look forward to working with him on the many issues of mutual interest. Dr. Wittig, the floor is yours.
Good morning. It's great to be here. Secretary Pritzker, Mr. Duesterberg, ladies and gentlemen, since most of the Germans are living in a soccer craze these days, let me first of all congratulate our US friends for this fabulous win yesterday. A great fight. 2 years ago, we met right here at the Aspen Institute. We were aware that Germany and the US were one of each other's most important economic partners. We knew that no other economic area was as integrated, modern, sophisticated, and affluent as the US-European marketplace. We learned that some 600,000 jobs in the US have been created through German investment. And we agreed that there was even more potential in our economic relationship, a relationship that is based on common values. So we were determined to do everything possible to strengthen our trade and investment ties. We heard from many German CEOs in the US that the lack of skilled labor was one, if not the biggest, obstacle to further German investment in this country. And we realized that the German model of vocational training might be something worth looking at for our American partners. Perhaps one of the fields in which Germany had something to offer. It was against this backdrop that the embassy came up with this nice little idea to launch an initiative, soon to become known as the Skills Initiative, which, if I may say so, has become hugely successful throughout the US, with governors, with entrepreneurs, with community colleges, and other stakeholders now actively involved. When we launched it 2 years ago at the Aspen Institute, it was then Acting Secretary of Commerce Rebecca Blank who delivered the keynote. Now, 2 years later, as we take stock of the initiative over the course of today, it is my great pleasure and a great honor indeed to welcome Secretary of Commerce Penny Pritzker, who has graciously agreed to deliver this morning's keynote. To me, it just shows the Commerce Department's dedication to this important field of our bilateral cooperation, and for that I wish to thank you, Secretary Pritzker, wholeheartedly. Thank you for being here. I would like to welcome all of you here today. Many of you have been instrumental in making the Skills Initiative a success, and I would like to thank you for your dedication and support. Ladies and gentlemen, workforce skills development is key to growth, investment, technology, and employment, not only in the US and Germany, but everywhere. German companies in the US are willing and able to be pioneers and leaders in their communities in providing workplace-based training. They have it in their corporate DNA. Later on the panels, we will hear about some of the best practices they have established in the US. And we will also hear how they have brought other companies in their communities on board. The goals of the Skills Initiative is to spread best practice, connect the dots, and most importantly, scale up best practices in workplace-based learning. In the US, there are many excellent initiatives, but all I ever hear from companies is that they would like to see more scale and more system, more trainees or apprentices, more training courses for a broader range of professions, and more systematic certification of credentials. Certification of credentials, that may sound a bit bureaucratic and boring, but it is critical to establishing a successful vocational training system, and Germany can be of help here too. We have achieved a number of mutual recognition agreements between the German Chambers of Commerce and Industry and specific US training programs. In other words, under these agreements, US training is certified as being equivalent to the German standard. And that is a powerful argument for site selection and inward investment to the US. It also makes the workers who earn such certification highly mobile. We'll hear later how one company is now sending trained workers from the US to its factories in Germany for additional specialized training. And an added benefit for the company is that the workers in Germany get to learn from their American counterparts how things are being done here. For the past 2 years, we have been focusing on a bottom-up approach, working with companies in local communities and taking a strictly practical approach. Let's now spread best practices and see to it that more trainees graduate from German-style workplace-based training. One area we could focus on in the future is how best to manage the interface between the bottom-up and the top-down approaches. In other words, what is the most effective way for a federal government to foster demand-oriented, workplace-based training, which by definition has to be owned and driven by companies in their local communities? We need to link innovation, advanced manufacturing, exports, and skills training. And I'm delighted, Secretary Pritzker, that the US federal government has just done that. Ladies and gentlemen, this is where the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership comes in, for which I personally will lobby during my tenure as German ambassador to the US. TTIP is about lowering barriers between the US and the EU markets and about writing the rule book for trade and investment in the 21st century. That will be good for jobs and growth and allow us to set a high standard to which others can aspire. It will also open the way for more investment across the Atlantic. And this brings me back to the Skills Initiative. Quality education combined with professional training creates the basis for new ideas, creativity, and innovation, which in turn allows our businesses to succeed in today's global markets. Everyone benefits, as the successful partnership to be highlighted in our conference panels today will show. With so many leaders from government, industry, training institutions, and academia here today, our conference offers a great opportunity to highlight successful approaches, best practices, and strategies in developing and retaining a skilled workforce and to learn from each other. And in closing, and in the spirit of transatlantic relations, let me reiterate my invitation to all of you to join us in a week from Thursday on June 26 at noon, right across the street at Dupont Circle for our grand public viewing of the World Cup soccer match between Germany and the US. As I said, cheering for the US will be permitted. One thing is certain, with Jürgen Klinsmann as head coach of the US national team, German skills will prove successful, no matter who wins. With that, it's my great pleasure to turn the floor over to you, Secretary Pritzker. Thank you very much for joining us today and for your ongoing support, and I look forward, as we all do, to your remarks.
Thank you, Ambassador Vidish, for your great introduction and for your leadership in strengthening the bonds between the United States and Germany. I understand that your service to in Washington is just about 5 weeks, and all I want to say is welcome to Washington. We're thrilled to have you here, and I know it'll be an ongoing great partnership between us. And though we agree on many things, expanding our economic partnership, the importance of a skilled workforce, we're going to have to agree to disagree on our predictions for the US-Germany World Cup match. So, and yes, there will be loud screaming in favor of the United States, as there was yesterday. And I want to thank Tom Duesterberg and the Aspen Institute for hosting all of us today. Thank you very much, and for serving as a key partner in promoting really smart policies as it relates to the skilled workforce. 2 years ago, as the ambassador said, one of my predecessors, Acting Secretary Rebecca Blank, came to the Institute to help launch the German Embassy's Skills Initiative. And she knew then what we still know now, which is the effort to bring our dual system of training to America may be one of the most valuable German imports to our country over the long term. And I believe there's a simple reason why Secretary Blank joined you in 2012. And that's why I returned here today. When the United States and Germany work together, both of our nation's economies grow, and our businesses thrive, and our families prosper. At this time, our bilateral ties have never been stronger. The facts tell the story of a robust, active, deep economic relationship. Last year, we had an all-time record of $223 billion in two-way trade, goods and services trade. And in 2013, Germany was our greatest export market and our largest source of imports in Europe. Germany remains one of our largest sources of foreign direct investment as well, comprising more than 10% of all foreign direct investment into the United States in 2012. So right now, leaders from both of our countries are working to remove regulatory hurdles and other barriers to trade, as the ambassador said, through TTIP. The ambitious US-EU agreement that the ambassador mentioned is really critical to setting trade standards around the world in the 21st century. But beyond the numbers, experience tells the story of the real benefits of our alliance for our companies and for our workers. So when I visited BMW plants in both Munich and in Spartanburg, South Carolina, I saw the thriving connection between a German company and an American community, a snapshot of our nation's deep commercial and economic ties. Also, when I traveled to Germany last November, I had the opportunity to meet with Evis. Evis is a medium-sized manufacturer that demonstrates the effectiveness of the German Embassy Skills Initiative. For Evis, the ability of a highly qualified workforce was critical. It was a key factor for them in their choice of a site for a new automotive supply plant in the United States. They found what they were looking for in Murray, Kentucky. And they found a real partner in the governor of Kentucky, Steve Beshear. He was a perfect partner for Evis. The governor sent a letter to all the businesses in his home state urging them to engage in the state's workforce training efforts. While preparing to start production in their factory in Murray, Kentucky, Evis received this letter and utilized the German Embassy Skills Initiative to connect with training partners and employers on the ground. Now Evis is applying the dual system in our own backyard, presenting a model of how we can educate workers and give them real-life experience at the same time. Meanwhile, Evis is bringing managers, trainers, and teachers from their Kentucky plant and Murray State University to Germany to learn from their German counterparts how to incorporate on-the-job training. This partnership is not unique to Kentucky. It exists in states across the country, and it is the template that we must replicate across our communities and businesses. This approach has long been embraced in Germany, and it must become the standard in the United States, because we all know that a skilled workforce is central to our successful economic future. We all know that skilled workers mean more productive businesses. We know that expanded training translates into more money in the pockets of working families. And in fact, research shows that 87% of U.S. workers who complete apprenticeships get good jobs and will make $300,000 more than their peers over their lifetimes. So that's why, for the first time ever, the Department of Commerce has made skills and workforce development a top priority. That's why the administration is investing $100 million in an upcoming apprenticeship competition targeting at providing support for apprenticeships in advanced manufacturing, IT, and healthcare services. That's why President Obama's fiscal year 15 budget calls for $2 billion of investments in apprenticeships over 5 years. and why the President's Opportunity for All agenda includes efforts to train Americans for careers in fields with high demand and the highest potential for growth. The Obama administration is committed to supporting and extending programs that link classroom education with hands-on experience. To give you one example of the strength of that commitment, in April I traveled with the President and the Vice President to Pittsburgh to announce investments in training efforts that respond to the needs of local employers. There we unveiled $500 million in what we call TACT grants. They're awarded to community colleges that partner with companies as well as with national industry associations to expand job-driven training programs. Yet for the sake of success of our workers and the prosperity of our economy, we can't stop at a single set of awards. We have to do more than that. So we should begin with efforts to educate and prepare our young people for high-quality jobs in the field of advanced manufacturing. Last week, I was at the Big M Convergence in Detroit, and I announced a new initiative called M-Lab 21. That's led by SME and 3D Systems. And the aim of M-Lab 21 is to revolutionize the concept of high school shop classes. It will put high-tech 3D printing tools along with inspiring curriculum and a robust online support community into our schools. This type of effort is essential and critical to introduce teenagers to the potential of a career in advanced manufacturing. But it's only a start. We must build on this foundation and develop a playbook for success. And that's why the administration is seeking to achieve, through its Advanced Manufacturing Partnership, AMP, which I co-chair, we're seeking to achieve all kinds of things, including a pilot that AMP has started with 4 apprenticeship programs, 2 of which are led by Dow, Alcoa, and Siemens. These companies are teaming up with community colleges in Northern California and in Southern Texas to train welders to work with high-performance alloys and to train maintenance technicians. So I want to applaud the work of Eric Spiegel, who's the CEO of Siemens North America, and he's going to be here later today on one of the panels. So I encourage all employers to follow the lead of these 3 great companies and reproduce these kinds of models that will spur job creation and grow our manufacturing capabilities. Whether it's through AMP, through the private sector acting on its own, or through collaboration between Germany and the United States, one thing is abundantly clear. We must continue investing nationwide in a stronger, better prepared, well-trained, and well-educated workforce. So before I close today, I want to look ahead and discuss how we can and will keep cooperating for the benefit of our businesses, our workers, and both of our countries. So first, we know that our government still has much to learn from Germany and vice versa. So we're collaborating with the Departments of Labor and Education and ministries in Germany on a cooperation agreement to deepen our relationship, share our ideas, and formalize our commitment to exchange best practices in job-driven training. Next, we plan to reestablish the Department of Commerce's National Advisory Council on Innovation and Entrepreneurship. It's known as NACI. It focuses on innovative practices to develop a globally competitive workforce and provide the department with key guidance to accelerate industry-driven skills training. So the application, pay attention, the application window for new members to join NACI opens today. And so I really encourage you to apply by visiting the Federal Register website. Our goal is to attract leaders and experts from industry, the entrepreneurial field, academia, and workforce training and organizations to advise our department on policies to spur innovation in workforce training. So finally, we recently announced the second Select USA Investment Summit. That will be March 23rd and 24th, 2015. Select USA, for those of you who are not familiar with it, it's the first ever federal government, U.S. federal government-wide effort to promote, attract, retain, and expand business investment to and within the United States. Germany is a priority market for Select USA, and more than 50 German company representatives participated in our first summit last fall. But for next year, I want to increase German participation. We've made it a real priority for the Department of Commerce to see more German participation. We want to offer German enterprises the unparalleled chance to interact with federal, state, and local officials, receive guidance from our agencies, and learn about opportunities to invest in our communities. U.S.-German cooperation is key to strengthening our economies and to secure a better future for our people. In few places is this more relevant or true than in skills development. I have personally seen how smart workforce training is a win-win for business workers through Skills for America's Future, an effort which we, a group of us, including Nick Pinchuk, who's sitting here, founded here at the Aspen Institute. This initiative was launched with the support of nationally recognized employers and has become a leader in employer-led workforce training by expanding the number of employer community college partnerships to provide workers in-demand skills. That effort, like the German Embassy Skills Initiative, must only be the beginning of a long-term, concerted, committed strategy to raise up the next generation of successful American workers, entrepreneurs, and enterprises. So our message is simple. America is open for business. To live up to that aspiration and to compete in the 21st century, it's our responsibility to ensure that we have an educated, flexible, and dynamic workforce. For the U.S.-German partnership to continue to thrive now and into the future, it is imperative that we always cooperate in a fashion that bolsters both of our nations. So for the world to benefit from the ingenuity and innovation at the core of American and German success, it must be our task to keep making skills training a top priority. Investing in our young people, empowering our middle class, strengthening our manufacturing sector, and securing broadly shared prosperity for all. So thank you for the invitation to be here today. Thank you all in this room for your work on the Skills Initiative, and thank you for keeping the U.S.-German relationship strong.
Good morning, everyone. I think I'm the guy who has to put us to ordinary work. Thank you, Secretary Pritzker, for your inspiring remarks. We very much enjoy working with you and the Department of Commerce to foster new education models in the United States. At the same time, we will continue to work with the DOC to further enhance conditions for foreign investors. I'd also like to thank our partners and our teams from the Aspen Institute, the German Embassy, and the German Center for Innovation and Research in New York City for preparing all this. My name is Thomas Silke, and on behalf of the Association of German Chambers of Commerce and Industry and the Federation of German Industries, it is now my great pleasure to announce our next panels. Almost exactly 3 years ago, in June 2011, the Executive Office of the President published a report to President Obama on ensuring American leadership in advanced manufacturing. One of the key conclusions from this report was that the United States could do more in providing the business environment and skilled workforce needed for advanced manufacturing. A lot has happened in the meantime. Numerous projects have been initiated, and the administration and think tanks have reached out to organizations like us in order to provide opportunities. I'm glad that today we can discuss progress and further steps that could be taken. It is still important to know successful manufacturing, free trade, investment, and quality jobs belong together and depend on each other. I'm rather sure our distinguished panelists will further on refer on that fact. I'm of course very pleased that we are able to have Emily DiRocco as our moderator for the first panel. She is the CEO of the E3 initiative and past president of the Manufacturing Institute. She also served as Assistant Secretary for Employment and Training at the United States Department of Labor under the Bush administration. The speakers on her panel will provide us with some great examples of how companies in the United States deal with a shortage of skilled workers and how German vocational education might serve as an example to address these issues. With the friendly help of the DUL, we were recently able to visit a few American companies in Pennsylvania who managed to establish their own system of apprenticeship, which was very impressive. The second panel then will take a deeper look at consortia solutions. Vocational education is a great opportunity, especially for smaller companies, to attract the best employees because they don't always have a well-known brand to attract workers. Consortia help them to finance and organize the appropriate training models. With Stefanie Jelichka as the moderator, we have an outstanding expert on the German vocational system. She also happens to be the one who was involved in the number of educational success stories German companies can tell. Our final panel will look into the future. We want to know what has to be done, and perhaps more importantly, what can be done to find cooperative initiatives based on German and American solutions. Joanne Halpern is the director of the German Center for Research and Innovation in New York City. In her stellar career, among other merits, she received the Harvard University Award for Distinction in Teaching. We are very happy that she will host that discussion. I'm looking forward to a day filled with dynamic discussions and inspiring stories. It is an open discussion, so please don't hesitate to ask questions and engage with our panels. We have microphones, which we will bring right to your seat so that our live stream audience can hear you. Now I will open the first panel. Thank you, dear panelists, and Mr. Rocco, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to take advantage of the time that it will take our panelists to get mic'd and seated and prepared to present to you, because Dr. Duesterberg asked me to share with you quickly an initiative that is happening nationally that responds very much to Secretary Pritzker's call for business leadership in this incredibly challenging era of ensuring an educated and skilled workforce, not just for advanced manufacturing, but for every economic sector in America. So we have a very unusual partnership that is in play right now among quite a few of what I would call the national and regional educational reform philanthropies in the U.S. Read that, the foundations you know and love: the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Joyce Foundation, the Lumina Foundation for Education, just to name a few. With the new ACT Foundation, which is focused on merging the worlds of work and learning, and Business Roundtable, representing hundreds of the nation's top CEOs. These organizations joined together just last October to launch something called the National Network of Business and Industry Associations. We launched with the first meeting this February, and 22 national business organizations representing the economic sectors in our economy came together to form this very voluntary network. The members are both professional and business organizations in manufacturing, retail, healthcare, energy, construction, hospitality, transportation, and the information technology sectors. Together, this network represents economic sectors that will be the source of nearly 75% of projected job growth in this country by 2020. The other thing that is unique about these economic sector organizations is that each of them has, over the course of, in some cases, a decade or more, worked very hard and diligently to create nationally portable, standards-based, industry-recognized credentials within their economic sectors. For those of you who knew me in my past life, as president of the Manufacturing Institute, you know that my single cause of action was creating and deploying the manufacturing skills certification system, which would be an industry-recognized standards-based certification program. Well, this national network now sits on the platform of the Business Roundtable and has identified a very aggressive business leadership agenda for the nation that we believe will serve as a national framework to create, most importantly, the blueprint of knowledge, skills, abilities, experiences, and behaviors that are necessary for individuals to get, keep, and advance in good jobs in this country. The 5-point agenda that this network has articulated and is working very diligently on is, number one, developing and describing a common set of employability skills that are vital in all major economic sectors. And you will recognize these as the personal skills, the people skills, the applied knowledge, and the general workplace skills. You think it's an easy task to get these businesses within these economic sectors to adopt a common language and articulate what those skill sets are? It has not been easy. We are almost there. On the table outside is our first draft set of common language and defined employability skills for the United States. The second agenda item is to clearly define the attributes of high-quality, validated, industry-recognized credentials. For those of you who know the credential market, certificates, certifications, and the like, it's absolute chaos in the United States, and I suspect globally. We are defining the attributes of quality, third-party validated industry credentials that achieve, and recognizing those that achieve those attributes. The third, and this is very, very important because our network recognizes three important things. Our economy is changing. We are no longer just a knowledge or innovation economy. We are moving into a performance economy. It's not good enough to aggregate knowledge if you cannot apply it. Secondly, our jobs are changing. The infusion of technology and the global competition dramatically changes our jobs and occupations and redefines them virtually every week. And third, our people are changing. There are 110 million working learners in this country. That means they are trying to adapt to a lifetime of working and continuing to learn new skills and illustrate their proficiency in those skills. Those three factors demand that we expand business-led, what we call work and learn models. Yes, that includes apprenticeship. We think it's very important that the country move to competency-based, not seat-time-based apprenticeships, and the outline for the 21st century competency-based apprenticeship. And two examples, one coming from the Health Information Management Association and the other from the National Institute of Metalworking Skills, are also outlined on white papers on the table outside. But it is our intent to expand business-led work and learn models, and this includes internships, tuition assistance programs, competency-based apprenticeship programs, co-op programs with our universities, and the like. We want to develop a full portfolio of work and learn models so that companies, no matter how large or how small, can in fact provide many, many more opportunities for our students and workers to work while they learn. Our fourth national agenda item is to explore ways to make competency-based recruitment, screening, and hiring the way of HR. As opposed to degree-based hiring, we want to move to competency-based hiring, and that's going to be a heavy lift, and we know it. And finally, the fifth agenda item is increasing awareness, adoption, and use of these network-identified solutions and credentials by schools, by employers, and by working learners. Some would call bringing this new paradigm to scale. So we are kind of putting our actions where our mouths are. This is about demand-driven change. It is about change that is not only designed by, it is implemented by the national business organization that represents the hundreds of thousands of member companies within these economic sectors that I have mentioned to you. So we're very proud of that effort. I hope you will pick up the papers on the table and become interested, engaged, and at least knowledgeable about the drive by the National Network of Business and Industry Associations. I was here 2 years ago when the German-American Skills Initiative was launched and have been on the ground in many of the states where it is implemented. And I am just thrilled that Tom asked me to moderate this panel. It's an extraordinary panel of talent and individuals whom, if you don't know, before you came in here, you should know. And I'm going to do a quick introduction of them because I have a few things to say about each of their companies and or initiatives, but you have full bios on your chairs. I encourage you to read them because it's pretty interesting to see where these experts have come from and why they hold an educated, skilled workforce so powerful in their own companies' productivity and profitability. So first, we have with us Eric Spiegel, who's president and CEO of Siemens USA. For those of us in this world of education reform and workforce development, particularly from the demand side, I have to tell you, Eric Spiegel has become like a household word. We talk about you all the time. Did you know that, Eric?
No.
He is in every forum and speaks so eloquently to the work of Siemens in not only developing, but having extraordinary success in redeploying apprenticeship in the United States. There's no other way to say it. So we are incredibly pleased to have Eric with us this morning. I wanted to note that he's an expert on the global energy industry, and he co-authored a book I read some time ago called Energy Shift: Game-Changing Options for Fueling the Future. And I just want to say, Eric, the next book, this is Game-Changing Options for Engineering the Future of Manufacturing. So we want to see that book. And very important to me, he is the vice chair of the Education and Workforce Committee of Business Roundtable, again, on whose platform, and I say that broadly, it's not just a technology platform, in whose house and with whose CEOs the National Network of Business and Industry Associations reside. Our second speaker is Peter Feil, and he is the Vice President General Manager of Stober Drives. And Peter has been involved in the manufacture of electric motors, electronics, and gear reducers for 27 years. He has chosen to settle, or maybe his company chose for him to settle in Maysville, Kentucky. And Kentucky, I believe, has its workforce director here. Is Josh in the house yet? Kentucky has an extraordinary community and technical college system, and we're really anxious to hear about the Stober Drives experiences in Kentucky. Immediately then, after him will be Ilker Subasi. And Ilker is the Assistant Manager of Technical Training for the Chattanooga operations of Volkswagen Group of America. The Volkswagen Academy is an extraordinary asset in Chattanooga. I have been there. And when the manufacturers in Tennessee meet in grand session, Volkswagen has a whole bunch of tables, which represents the important connection that they have made to the community and the state in Tennessee. Ilker has an interesting educational background I want to cite, because it isn't often that I find this kind of expertise joining together in support of our national workforce efforts. So you're on the hook now. Ilker, he has a Master of Engineering degree from the Technical University of Hanover, but also a Bachelor of Arts degree in pedagogical teaching. That is an extraordinary asset to bring to the challenges we all face. And then finally, on the other side of the podium is Arjanetta Gilliard. And Arjanetta is the Human Resources Manager for MTU America. And I want to tell you, Arjanetta, that it's the HR directors that are hardest for us to change, so we're going to call on you to lead the nation in this reform effort. She is currently located at the MTU Aiken plant in Graniteville, South Carolina. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. We have all been watching with great interest the South Carolina Chamber's leadership in driving to a new apprenticeship model that is widely accepted by businesses across economic sectors in South Carolina. And again, I think illustrates how powerfully we can drive these community partnerships that are at the heart of this particular skills initiative. So with those short introductions, if I may, I'm just going to turn it over to you to roll through our panel presentations. We're going to ask each of the panelists to take 7 or 8 minutes and tell you specifically about their agenda, their initiatives, and then I have a whole set of questions for them just in case you don't. So Eric, may I ask you to go first?
Sure. Can I just stay here?
You can do whatever you want. I just, there wasn't anywhere to hook my mic, so I had to stand here.
Okay. I'll just keep my remarks informal, and hopefully we can get pretty quickly to having a good discussion with all of you. Let me just start by saying a couple things. One is there's been a lot published about the skills gap. I still go to a lot of events and talk about the need for more training and how do we overcome the skills gap, and get a lot of debate from people about whether there is a skills gap. Obviously, the people who are saying that don't have any plants where they have to hire workers for today's modern manufacturing. So I kind of start there. But if you take a look, we still have well over 10, 12, 15 million people out of work. If you take a look at the people who are underemployed in this country, it's well over 20, 25 million people. We're at the lowest level of people who are seeking, who are employed, who are seeking employment, I think since the war, since the end of World War II. If you take a look at the number of people, companies who are saying that the jobs available out there, you see numbers as low as 600,000, 700,000. You see numbers as high as 4 million. I don't know what the numbers are, but they're big. And I think the best part of the story is we're going to hear today what some companies are doing to attack that issue. I think the bigger challenge is really ahead of us, because I see this gap widening, and I see it widening pretty quickly. Let me explain a little bit about why that is. So a couple things are going on. One is we have an aging population. So even at a company like Siemens, where we have over 100 manufacturing plants and 60,000 employees in the US, we're seeing hundreds of skilled workers retire every year in the US. And if you take a look, extrapolate that across the whole country, that's adding up to hundreds of thousands and millions of people who are going to be retiring. Secondly, the number of skills we need as we move forward is pretty wide, and the gaps, the jobs, where the jobs are, is very fragmented. This is a big country. Germany is relatively small compared to the US. It's a huge country, and so the jobs are spread across the country. And what we found is that labor is not very mobile. We've opened 4 major plants in the last few years, and I got to tell you, if you don't find them within a 50 square mile radius, you're pretty much not going to find them. And that's something a lot of people didn't anticipate. The third big thing is US companies in general have really stopped training people. If you go back just 20 years, the average company spent over 4 weeks a year on average training people. Now we're down to an average of a day or 2 of actual training for employees. So the amount of training, on average, now that's not talking about a lot of the companies that are here today, talking to other companies, but on average, the amount of training has dropped off. And third is manufacturing, as you all know, has a very bad image problem. And so we've got all of those things to overcome at a time when we think at Siemens, and I think some of the other companies here will agree, you're going to see the biggest shift in manufacturing that we've ever seen in history over the next 5 to 10 years. In Germany, we call it Industry 4.0. Over here, you'll see a lot of different words and terms used to describe it, but it's a lot about basically software-led manufacturing, machine-to-machine communication, the Internet of Things. But basically, you're going to see a huge transformation in advanced manufacturing. Advanced manufacturing, we believe, is really where the U.S. is advantaged. It's not really advantaged in commodity manufacturing. So if you take a look at a lot of the manufacturing that's going on in the U.S., some of it was offshored because it was very labor intensive. A lot of that's not going to come back. A lot of it, most of the money being spent in manufacturing in the U.S. during the recession, is really starting to modernize a lot of the old manufacturing we have in this country. But I would say that a lot of the manufacturing in this country is still outdated. And in the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see a massive transformation in terms of manufacturing where everything is run by robots, computers, et cetera. It doesn't mean we don't need people. It means the technology is much more sophisticated than in the past, which means we need much bigger skills. So what are we doing about it? We'll hear some really good stories. I know some of the stories here today, and I think they're very good. I think the big challenge for this country is to kind of wake up and think about how do we scale this in a way that we position ourselves not even for where the world is today, but where the world's going. We've got to think about what the world's going to look like over the next 5, 10, 15 years. And as I said, I think that's a very different world. And we're not very good at scaling. Every state, every city, every company, right now we have a lot of micro things going on. I think the ambassador mentioned that we've had a lot of bottom